Yep, we are recording now.
Great. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our presentation on developing a philosophy and commitment to anti-racism statement. My name is Elise Pelzer. I am the Writing, Reading, Speech Assistance Specialist in the Learning Commons at the College of DuPage. And I'm joined today by my colleague and co-host, Irina.
Hi, everyone.
Irina will be helping me kind of manage the chat box throughout this presentation. And before we jump in, I'd like you just to take a moment to go ahead and please enter your name and your department in the chat box so we know who we're talking with today. And I also want to preface the presentation with telling you, just to avoid any confusion, you will often hear me refer to Writing, Reading, Speech Assistance by our acronym WRSA. So you'll likely be hearing that term quite a few times throughout this presentation. Okay, great. I am seeing a variety of names and different departments, which is excellent. Okay, great. So let's begin. Now, I can assume since you are here today, you might have an interest in creating your own philosophy and commitment to anti-racism statement for your own area. I'd like to get an idea of maybe how comfortable or how confident you feel in drafting your own anti-racism statement. You'll see a scale of numbers here on the screen. So if you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and pick one of those numbers and put them in the chat box and let me know where you may be at in terms of thinking about your own statement for your own area. Irina, if
yes,
we
see. Well, we have quite a variety of numbers. We have 3s and 4 from Janice, and then 2.5 from Rosanna. We have 3s from Julie, Deanna, Jen Kelly had wrote 4. Yeah, quite a variety, 2s and 3s and 4s. So okay. I guess the participants feel differently about it.
Okay, great. So yes, that does sound like quite a range of numbers. And my hope is that by the end of this presentation today, some of those numbers may increase along with your confidence and comfort levels.
Elise,
yes.
Can I quickly interrupt you? There is an orange frame on the right that we can see, and yeah, okay, it's gone now.
Gone.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Thank you.
Okay, let me back up a little. Okay, it is gone?
Yeah, it's back again. It comes and goes. I'm not sure what it depends on. Okay. Now it's fading away. Yeah, well, and it's coming back.
Okay, bear with me 1 second, please.
Sure.
Does it look okay now, Irina?
Yes, I don't see it now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so to give you a preview of today's agenda, I do want to begin with providing a little bit of background on what has brought us to the development of our anti-racism statement. Then we will review the drafting process, and we'll also take a look at the statement together. Now, when we get to that point, please keep in mind that the statement is still very much in a draft stage. We do anticipate making quite a few changes after today's presentation. And then lastly, we will open up the floor for a panel discussion. So it may be helpful to keep a pad of paper and a pen nearby, as there will be some opportunities to stop and jot down ideas. In the summer of 2020, WRSA staff embarked on a quest to learn, reflect, and grow in their personal and professional roles regarding anti-racism, equity, and social justice topics. One of the ways in which we did this was by creating what we call coaches training modules. These training modules are created with an interest in mind that relates to our work in WRSA. And then they're shared with our fellow coaches and sometimes even the greater COD community. There are a wide range of topics, as you can see here, and these are designed to help us further develop our crafts and how we assist students. These are just some of them. So please take a few seconds and check out some of these titles. In addition to the training modules, we also have participated in and continue to focus our efforts in the following areas. Some of our staff members have contributed to the January faculty professional development on creating a culture of caring equity and student success through presentations and virtual posters and COD Ideas 21-day Racial Equity Habit Building Challenge. Some of our staff members are currently engaged in a book club, and they are reading a book titled Writing Centers and the New Racism, a call for sustainable dialogue and change. Some other WRSA staff members participated in the East Central Writing Center Association dialogue on anti-racist tutoring in writing centers, while others contributed to the annual Illinois Community College Assessment Fair through presentations and academic posters on the topic, Assessment Work is Equity Work. We are currently in the process of drafting an update to our website that will include writing resources for students with tips to avoid using oppressive language. Just recently, a handful of WRSA staff members attended a phenomenal webinar on linguistic discrimination and more equitable writing center work with author Dr. April Baker Bell. And of course, the reason why we're here today, we have drafted a WRSA philosophy and commitment to anti-racism mission statement. If you are interested in learning more about any of these activities, please feel free to send us an email. Irina will go ahead and include WRSA's email address in the chat box.
It's there.
Thank you. So now that you have a better understanding of what has brought us here today, let's discuss how we began the drafting process. It was important to review the current Learning Commons policies. As 1/3 of the departments that make up the Learning Commons, it was vital that our mission statement stay in line with the overarching Learning Commons policies. I also took a look at our own general writing, reading, speech assistance mission and philosophy statements to check for accuracy against what is currently stated on our official website. Lastly, my supervisor and I referenced the COD Equal Employment and Affirmative Action Policy website to make sure that we stayed within the appropriate guidelines for our section on hiring practices. After reviewing COD's available resources, I moved on to researching other schools' examples of anti-racism commitment statements. This step took a bit of time, but it did provide a lot of great information and ideas to see what other writing centers are doing in their own efforts against anti-racism. Some of the examples that I found most helpful came from these schools' websites. So it may be a good idea just to take a quick picture of this with your phone if you're interested in checking them out. Once I had a better grasp on the type of content that is typically included in these types of statements, I started to consider the sections to be included in our own statement. After working in WRSA for many years, I approached this step similarly to how you might outline an academic paper. I knew that I wanted to have a very clear introduction, and I wanted to state our purpose for writing this piece. I also wanted to include a section on who we are as a department, which would give a brief overview of the diverse backgrounds of our coaches and their expertise. I, of course, wanted to include what our goals are for this piece and just as a whole. And I also wanted to state the action steps that we are currently taking to reach those goals, as well as the ones that we intend to take. And lastly, I wanted to conclude the piece with a list of campus resources that I thought would be helpful for COD students and staff. I envision this piece as having a beginning, a middle, and an end, although our work is, of course, still ongoing. Once I had finally gotten the draft to a place that I felt comfortable with, it was time to start the revision process. At the point when I started to feel my eyes go blurry from looking at it so much, I called in the reinforcements and I reviewed it with the WRSA coordinator, Margaret Hernandez. We then submitted it to the Learning Commons supervisor, Diane Zacconi, for her stamp of approval. Once we got the green light from Diane, we sought out the valuable feedback from a few other WRSA staff members. And of course, here today, we hope to seek further feedback from all of you. Now, we will take a look at the statement together in just a moment. But before we do, I'd like to ask you to respond as a reader to the statement. This is a common practice that we do in our own coaching sessions with students, and we seek your comments and suggestions in the following areas. Please keep the following questions in mind as we read through WRSA's anti-racism statement and include any feedback that you have in the chat box. We will save the chat box comments to review them later on, and it may help to take a picture of these questions before we proceed. So we are interested to know if you have any suggestions for content that we might have missed or anything that you think should be included. Do you think that there are any other relevant campus resources that should be included in the list at the end? Do you have any ideas on how and where this statement should be shared once it is finalized? And of course, do you have any questions or concerns? So please feel free to take a quick picture of these questions and we will go ahead and move on. So at this point, I am going to call on some of my colleagues to help me read through these slides together. If I call on you, please unmute your microphone and take us through the slide. And also jot down any questions, comments, suggestions that you may have for the slides in the chat box. Irina will keep an eye on that. And also take a minute after each slide to write down any ideas, keeping your own draft in mind. So let's see, can I ask Patty to go ahead and unmute her microphone and take us through this first slide, please?
Certainly. The College of DuPage, COD Writing, Reading, Speech Assistant, WRSA area, fully supports the college's vision and mission for diversity and inclusion. In addition to providing academic assistance to the subjects listed in the acronym WRSA, our staff seeks to articulate and affirm our dedication and commitment to providing a space in which all students and staff feel welcome, respect, safety, and acceptance. In its mission statement, the COD Learning Commons states that its underlying purpose is to serve as a comprehensive center that provides academic support to all College of DuPage students and staff. WRSA is a subset of the Learning Commons and was founded with the goal of facilitating lively collaborative discourse to assist students in developing strategies to become better writers, readers, and speakers.
Beautiful. Thank you, Patty.
You're welcome.
So what Patty just took us through was the introduction stage of the anti-racism statement. So again, please include any questions, comments, suggestions in the chat box. And also take a few seconds to jot down ideas that you might want to include in your own introduction paragraph. Okay, let's move on. So can I ask, let's see, Janice, would you mind unmuting your microphone and taking us through this next slide, please?
Okay, we recognize that post-secondary education, and more specifically, the concept of academic writing and speaking perpetuated by these institutions can demonstrate oppressive standards for students of color. We also recognize that writing centers as a training ground for post-secondary writers, readers, and thinkers can do one of two things: remain complacent in these institutional ideals or challenge them. In WRSA, we choose to challenge the dominant narrative. We affirm that there is no singular English language and strive to contest the constraining notions of writing, analyzing, and speaking. Further, we aim to revise arcane and inequitable practices. Our current staff includes a mix of multidisciplinary academic assistants from a myriad of backgrounds. Cultural, linguistic, and academic diversity provides a solid foundation for which WRSA prides itself. Through professional development, safe zone training, modules focused on social injustice and discrimination as it relates to academic literacies, discussion, and research, WRSA coaches eagerly learn equitable pedagogies for coaching to ground their practices in anti-racist philosophy and racial awareness. WRSA emphasizes student agency, critical literacy, and building writer awareness for all student populations. Through our practices, our mission is to provide the highest level of support for underrepresented groups based on an anti-racism race theory perspective.
Great, thank you so much, Janice. Janice just took us through the purpose paragraph of the statement. And then she also read through our who we are as a department statement section. So again, please include any questions or suggestions in the chat box, and also jot down a few ideas for your own draft. Okay, let's move on. Can I go ahead and call on Rosanna to take us through this next slide, please?
Sure. A team of lifelong learners, WRSA coaches are dedicated to continuing to explore issues of anti-racism and social justice and are committed, but not limited, to the following actions. We commit to ongoing critical reflection of past and current systems of oppression and efforts to play our role in the combat of such systems. We acknowledge that there is a standardized language of oppression that exists within academia and vow to continue educating ourselves and our students when presented with examples of oppressive language during appointments. We affirm that there are many ways to speak and write so as not to assume a default, universal, or discriminative form of the English language. To best serve our non-native students, WRSA staff includes and learns from specialized ESL consultants. We listen to students, reassure student agency, encourage self-advocacy, and fight for marginalized voices to be heard. We maintain scheduling policies to ensure availability of services for all student populations, as well as to avoid an over-reliance on coach assistance resulting in students' loss of work ownership.
Excellent. Thank you, Rosanna. So Rosanna just started our goals and our action steps section. And I just want to give a quick shout out to our co-host, Irina, who is one of our ESL consultants. And she just does amazing things for our group and our team. So
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, let's continue. Can I ask Kate to unmute her microphone, please, and read through this next slide of bullets?
Sure. Okay. We examine our own positionalities and biases in order to foster lively discourse with students in a non-judgmental manner focused on student success. We will name racism when we see it, as we adopt a no tolerance for racism policy in WRSA. Issues will be addressed as necessary. We work collaboratively with all currently enrolled College of DuPage students, simultaneously leaving the authority of work in students' hands and remaining sensitive to where they are in their learning. We will not turn students away, and we will serve experienced and inexperienced writers, readers, and speakers in any discipline at all stages of the writing, reading, and speech processes. We strive to provide a non-threatening environment and safe place for students, and will act as allies for those who may benefit from additional college referrals in the forms of financial aid, veteran services, access and accommodations, counseling and advising, and information on resources for food insecurities and student diversity and inclusion.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kate. So as you can guess, Kate continued our section on goals and action steps that we are currently taking and intend to take. So please, again, include any questions, comments, suggestions in the chat box. We will look at those. And also take a few seconds to jot down any ideas for your own anti-racism statement and maybe some goals and action steps that you wish to take. Okay, can I ask Wendy, would you be able to unmute your microphone for us and read this next slide, please?
Sure. We provide resources on tips to avoid oppressive writing on our webpage. We look to hire qualified staff irrespective of their race, color, religion or creed, gender, sex, national origin, ancestry, age, marital status, sexual orientation, citizenship status, or physical or mental handicap or disability, if otherwise able to perform the essential functions of the job with reasonable accommodation. Our ultimate aim is to help students develop their voice, skills, and critical thinking. Rather than focusing on fixing, editing, or correcting a student's rhetoric or language use, we celebrate opportunities to discuss a writer's decisions, thought processes, stylistic choices, and understanding of assignment details as individual learners. We commit to ongoing assessment of our progress on the aforementioned items, as well as adopt new action steps as we continue to learn.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Wendy. So Wendy actually just finished up our section on goals and action steps. So again, take a few seconds, provide any feedback you might have, and also jot down some other goals or action steps if they have come to mind. Okay, as you can see here, I concluded the mission statement with a list of campus resources for further student and staff reference. If you can think of any resources that you think would be good to add to the list, please go ahead and throw them in the chat box. But also think about any resources that would be pertinent to your department and your own anti-racism statement, and maybe quickly jot those down on your paper there. While you do that, I just want to say another thank you to my very fantastic readers. You all did a great job, and I appreciate your help. Okay, so now that we've looked at the WRSA's anti-racism mission and commitment statement as a group, I would like to open up the floor to a panel discussion. And I would like to consider the following questions, keeping your own future anti-racism statement in mind. I'm interested to know now if you have a good idea on how you might start your own statement. Will your area need to include any other relevant sections or resources? And are there any areas that you are still struggling with in terms of getting started? Please go ahead, use the chat box, or you can use the raise hand emoji, or also just go ahead and unmute your microphone. Feel free to address any one of these questions or all of them. And Irina will help us with the chat box. Would anyone like to begin with one of these questions? Irina, do we have anything in the chat?
Well, we have one comment from Deanna. When we were reading the goals and action steps, she wrote that this rings so true to what we do.
Yes, thank you. That is our that's our intent. Okay. Is there anyone with us today that is toying with the idea of creating your own anti-racism statement for your area? We could start there.
Yeah, and the other question I would ask, if that doesn't lead anywhere, is I noticed that we have a lot of librarians with us today, and English faculty members and sociology. Obviously, we will be interacting with students that you interact with, and so we welcome your feedback, questions, input, suggestions, so that we can align with what you desire as well.
Yes, definitely. Anyone?
I can speak up if you guys don't mind me floating a question. I'm a little bit, I'm sort of struggling with how to address this. So in English, we're sort of flirting with the idea of putting together a statement. But one of my reluctance in doing so sort of comes from the idea is, how does a statement support this sort of philosophy or the mission of the program? And like Jen Kelly and I have actually just been chatting back and forth. Like, I sort of worry that a lot of these statements are made without the sort of, you know, inertia or foundation underneath the statement for a program to be able to actually walk the talk. So I'm wondering if you guys have any advice for how a statement can be reflective of, but also change the way that a program delivers its curriculum to students to support the sort of language behind the statement. Sure.
No, that's a great question. Thank you, Tim. So as I mentioned earlier, there's been so much groundwork that has gone on and taken place before we even attempted writing our own statement. Our work in the areas of anti-racism and researching social justice really picked up a lot of steam back in the summer of 2020. And this included, we did our own separate 21-day challenge. We've been reading articles, books, watching TED Talks, watching different videos, and we've just been really delving into this area. We've been attending a lot of conferences. And so I do think that there's a lot of research that does need to be performed before you can go ahead and attempt writing one of these statements. As I mentioned too, really looking at what other writing centers were doing was very helpful, just to kind of give us an idea that what we wanted to do and what we were proposing was in line with what other schools are currently doing as well. And to your point of trying to make sure like everybody is kind of on the same team, and we've also been focusing a lot of concern in that area as well, because we do feel like we've done so much research and professional development and practicing that we are at least at a comfortable place where we can walk the walk and not just talk the talk. But we do also want to make sure that we are acting as a uniform team with the faculty. So we've also been in contact with Jen Kelly, and we're just trying to kind of make sure that everybody in the college is on the same page, so that we are not working with your students in a way that would not be supported by the faculty. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but hopefully it just kind of gave you a little bit of motivation to feel free to really start researching some of these topics and doing a bit of homework before the anti-racism statement, because you're not expected to know how to do this without that groundwork.
And Elise, can I just add that after everything that we did, it changes the way you think. You're not prepared for it, but it's just something that happens when a student says a certain phrase or includes something in a paper. You know, it's like it really perks your mind that, wait a minute, there's something more to this. And I really think that in the English department, you know, if you do take the time to kind of, you know, research and get involved and really look at past history and what's continuing to go on, it may change the way you structure your assignments. It might change the topics that you choose, because in WRSA, we don't see a lot of topics that would be uncomfortable. And I know a lot of us feel that this is kind of a shame, that maybe these things should be brought up, that, you know, maybe there should be some assignments with the topic of, you know, effects of racism, where I think a lot of the instructors shy away from that. And the more education you have, the more you feel confident with, you know, on doing some of the social injustices. You don't feel like it's such a risk to have a topic that is a little bit more, you know, I don't even know how to describe it, just something that's not as neutral as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Deanna.
If I could say, one of the things that's been helpful for me has been, we have a shared list of resources. And so it's something that, you know, if I can't sleep at night, although that's not the best reading before going to bed, but if there's, you know, you got a few minutes here and there are things that it's easy access to a lot of information, some of it in very bite-sized chunks that to get through. So it's nice to have those resources readily available to all the members of our staff.
If I could chime in too and jump off Tim's query. This has been a really humbling experience for us, Tim. And actually, our mission has changed based on what we've learned. And I feel like the more we learn, it's going to be a moving target. And so I don't know if we'll ever have a final draft. I think we'll be pretty close, and then we'll learn something new and we'll finesse it a little bit more.
Mm.
And so I think Elise and my goal was just to make this, although it's daunting, to make it manageable and okay to just put something on paper and continue to learn and revise.
Yeah.
And Jen has a comment, it looks like.
Hi, thanks.
Hey, Jen.
I just want to stress what you've been saying, Elise, and also what Glynis mentioned, this idea of a culture shift and all of the work that has to happen before getting to the statement point. In everything that I've read and participated in and done involving anti-racist pedagogy or inclusive teaching, it all begins with that self-work and understanding yourself and like individuals of the team before you can begin this process. So it is, and I know that I've been talking with you all in WRSA for, it's coming on a year now, right? Over a year. It seems like it's been a while, and I think I can't stress enough that it's a process that does require a lot of reflection and work. One of the challenges that we're seeing, I think, across the college as we're beginning to have these conversations is some pushback from different constituencies. And I think that comes from the college as a whole as not being ready for this part of it yet. We can't create, for example, like a college-wide statement of anti-racism because the entire college hasn't done the work yet. So I think the scope of what WRSA's done is pretty ideal because it's team-based, and it's something that you can say, okay, we're all on board with this. And so my recommendation for anybody thinking about doing this work is to do it at that small team level first, and to have these conversations and I think follow the model that you all have taken, Margaret, because it's clearly effective, that to have gone through this entire process and built so much. It's just like a necessary step.
Thank you. And tomorrow, Elise and I are actually speaking to the equity team about our efforts in this area. And one of the things that we really want to emphasize is that we would really like to be a part of these future conversations because, we're all in, and to be siloed is not going to be effective. And so, Tim, we want to hear what the English team is doing, and we want to hear what the sociology team is doing. We want to hear what the librarians are doing. And so that we can honor your wishes while still, making sure that the students are heard and, don't feel marginalized as a writer. So.
Were there any other questions, comments? Jen, I see your hand raised. I don't know if that's still from the previous comment or if you have something else to add.
I just forgot to lower it. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, no problem.
There are two comments in the chat box. One is from Glynis, and just a second. She wrote that it's a culture shift and will take time for us to shift how we work on a daily basis. And then Janice, I think, agreed with you, Elise, and she wrote, our statement will be a living document. And also Glynis added just now, and so the students trust us and what we can do for them. I think it's she's adding it to what Margaret has just said.
Yes, yeah. So obviously the statement holds a lot of meaning for us and for how we want to work with students and staff. But it is I think you said it was Glynis that used that phrase, a living document. It is very much a living document. It's a piece of writing. And, you know, there are those that would argue that a piece of writing is never really complete. And we're okay with that because we continue our efforts and our journey into this area, and we will make changes as needed. Yes, I see your hand raised.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so quick question about just kind of considering whom the mission statement is for, like the audience, because I'm thinking it's students. So like, are students ever going to be able to, before we draft it out, we get any student input on it first? Like we've been getting input from peers and supervisors and stuff. Just curious.
That's a good question, Jessica. There will be a student in the meeting tomorrow. So for sure, we'll at least expose it to one student tomorrow, but it's definitely something for us to further consider.
Thank you. Good question.
Especially because I
Can
want to, oh, sorry.
No, you go, Jess.
I just want to make sure, because I'm nervous about, I always want to gauge, you know, what feels to students performative versus authentic, you know, especially with like the list of here are the things we've done. Is it like, is that clear to them? Does the purpose of those things matter the way that we want it to them? How is it coming across? I want to know.
Absolutely. We always want to consider our audience. So that's a good point.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to hear.
Let's take one last comment and then we'll go ahead. I want to be respectful of your time.
I know. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Elise, I just wanted to say very quickly, anyone who's a little bit unsure of how to start or, you know, how you would get to this point, just do it. Just start. Remember when you talked about, you know, it's going to be uncomfortable things. You don't know what you don't know, and just start anywhere and see what happens.
Yeah, pen to paper. Okay, Janice, did you have one last?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to say, I know that one of the sections addresses who we are in WRSA. I'm wondering if we could also add a section, and I think this also fits with what Jess just said, who are our students, who our students are.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, you know, along with the other Learning Commons departments, we hope that pool of students includes every student. Not only ones that might be struggling with their academics, but the ones that are doing just fine, and even the honor students, any and all in between. So yeah, that's a good idea, Janice. Thank you.
Liz,
Okay,
we have a few comments in the chat box. You want me to read them? Or
yeah, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead.
Yeah, one of them is from Wendy. She wrote, doing all the research was a very eye-opening experience and helped me to be aware of my own biases. And then Jen Kelly wrote, from a professional development perspective, I would love to work with the WRSA team to create an outline toolkit for teams who want to begin this work. Patty wrote, this was my first look at our mission statement, and I'm so impressed with the precise language and the positive tone. And then Rosanna added, love Janice's and Jess's ideas about including our students. Deanna wrote, so true, Wendy.
Yes, all very good ideas and feedback. And Jen, you know, we're always on board. Anything you want to do, we're on board. So let's talk about that. Okay, so now that we've kind of looked at everything together, we, you know, definitely value your feedback and your suggestions. I'd like to revisit that question that we posed at the very beginning. If you wouldn't mind, go ahead and put in a number in the chat box. Hopefully you feel a little bit more confident and comfortable with the idea of creating your own philosophy and commitment to anti-racism statement.
Okay, we have between 3 and 3.5 from Rosanna. Lots of 3s. Janice is still 4.
Okay, very good.
With 3.5, Kate wrote 3, Nina wrote 3. Okay, yeah, mostly it looks like mostly 3s and 3.5s.
Wonderful.
Yeah, 3.5 from Jessica as well.
Perfect. Great. Well, that makes me, I'm thrilled to know some of those numbers went up. For anyone other than our WRSA folks, I'd like to end by offering our services to you. If you do decide to attempt writing your own anti-racism statement, please keep us in mind. Our services are also available to COD staff. So we are by no means experts on this topic. This was in fact our first anti-racism statement too, but we can respond as readers. And if you are interested in scheduling an appointment to meet with a coach and receive some feedback on your own draft, we are currently offering online and face-to-face online appointments, as well as email coaching. And if you visit our website, you can find directions on how to schedule those appointments right here. We are open 7 days a week. And during the summer, we are closed Friday and Saturday, but if you're interested in giving us a call, we have our contact number there. And that URL at the bottom is our scheduling website. Okay. So again, thank you so much for attending. We appreciate the insightful discussion and value your feedback. Please go ahead and mention any last minute questions, concerns, comments in the chat box. And thank you so much for spending your morning with us. We appreciate it.
Lots of thanks, Elise, from the participants. Great job. Thank you, Elise, and everyone in WRSA. Deanna is very proud of this. Rosanna is saying thank you as well. Awesome work, great content. Good. Thank you for pushing. Thank you for pushing the door open on this. From Susan. Yeah.
That's our hope. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.